Good morning and welcome to the next JP Tech Talks tutorial. We're going to talk about typography today. So typography is the study of text. So there's various different ways to describe it, ways to talk about typography, and we're going to do some fun little activities with regards to typography. Not that we're going to create our own text or nothing. We're not going to get that detailed. But in a way to understand text, we're going to understand text characters, and we're going to have some fun designing little faces to do that. So a couple different things. On your website, you will see that there is lots of different assignments that we have. Specifically, when you go to the JP website, you can go to Visual Composition, and we have our typography worksheets, as well as our typography faces project. So this project here, if I open this up just so you can see, we are going to be creating some type faces using 7 different characters. So for every piece of text is considered a character. Now, we can't just have 7 question marks because those are all the same character. So it has to be 7 distinct characters. So there's a couple different ways that we can do this. One is that we could go into Photoshop. We could create a new document in Photoshop. We would be able to make it be, essentially we're going to make it a quarter of a page. So we're going to have it be 4.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. Resolution is not super important, but just to get in a habit, 300 pixels per inch is print quality, high quality. So when we hit create, that's going to give us a nice document. Now it looks like a full page, it fills the screen, but it's actually only, if you look at the rulers here, 4.5 inches by 5.5, just what we said. And we would take the text tool then, and we would start to create various different elements for our face. So I might have a left bracket, and then I'm going to click the move tool just so that it creates a new text layer for me. And then I'm going to click the right bracket, and so on and so forth. And then now I can take the move tool and I can move around these various different layers. Now, this is all well and good and everything looks lovely and we've got all these nice different layers that we can work with. The difference is that Photoshop is not what we would consider a vector program. So it allows us a little bit of freedom to move things around and to select different items. We can scale them, we can change their size, but we can't change their shape very well without doing a whole bunch of work. So instead of using Photoshop, we're actually going to use Adobe Illustrator. So when you go to your start menu, it's this one here. Adobe Illustrator looks like an AI is the abbreviation, and you'd be able to load it up, and it looks almost identical to Photoshop, but it works a lot different in the way that it handles vectors and the way that it handles text and text characters. So again, we're going to go to File, New. We're going to make a new document that is again 4.5 inches wide and 5.5 inches tall, and we are going to actually create 4 of them. And this is the cool thing about Illustrator, is that it allows us to have multiple what are called artboards on the same file or on the same design. And it allows us to copy and paste items from one to the next really easily, keeps things consistent, looks really consistent, and down the road makes our life super easy because everything's all contained in the same place. So when I hit create, now I'm going to get 4 specific artboards that are all, they're not a different document because this is considered the one same document that we would be doing our typography faces in, but now we get the 4 different windows all at the same time. In Photoshop, we would have had to do them in 4 separate documents, and it becomes a little bit annoying and a little bit awkward. So obviously we just want to deal with one at a time, so we're going to take the zoom tool, zoom in on this. If we hit Control 0 on our keyboard, it will allow us to fill or center the page with whichever one. If we're in the middle, it goes to the top left here. And then we can scooch over to whichever one we're going to do. So we want to do let's say we're going to do the angry face first. So the very first thing, I'm going to take the text tool. I'm going to type angry at the bottom here so I remember which face I am creating. Make that just a little bit bigger. And now we are going to start creating this face. So I'm going to use the various different text items that I have at my disposal. So again, maybe I'm going to have some brackets for eyebrows or whatever they might be. But now as soon as I click on them, the nice part about Illustrator is I can rotate this. I can scale this item up and down. And very easily, if I wanted to tweak this text character to be slightly different, I could simply go to Object, and I can say expand, and it's going to ask me how I want to expand that, and I would just say okay. I'm going to leave it with the default, and now it gives me control over this exact shape. If I use the white direct selection tool, notice my points now have attached themselves to the ends of these lines. So I can actually specifically click on this. I click one time to select it, and the second click starts to bend this. So I can kind of tweak these characters to make them look a little bit different. Then I would go back to the selection tool again. I can still rotate it. I can do all kinds of creative things with it, kind of making my own custom characters. So in this case, I have one bracket going this way, and I'm going to want another bracket on the other side. So the shortcut for copying something on your keyboard is Control-C, and then Control-V will paste it again. Now, obviously, I've pasted the exact same one. So I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to transform, and I'm going to reflect it. And I want to reflect it vertically, so that it goes left to right as opposed to horizontally up and down. So I just simply hit OK, and now I get that reflection of it. I can put it into place where it's going to be, and I've got the starts of my face showing up here. So now maybe for the eyeballs, I am going to use a couple different sizes of O. So maybe I'll have one that's a 0. And I'm going to select the pen tool just so I deselect the text tool, and then I'm going to select text again, and this time I'm going to use an actual 0. An O, a lowercase o. And if I scale both of these up so that I can see what I'm doing, I can actually position one character over top of the other to overlap a little bit, and it would create kind of a false eye here. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit fun. You can start to use your creativity. If I want to move both these at the same time, I simply just have to select them both, and now I can rotate this object together. If I want to permanently group it together, I would right-click and I would say, I want to group this together. Oh. Sorry about that. You got to go to Object, Group, and now when I click on it, they'll automatically select each other and be put together. Now we want the angry guy, so his eyes are going to be, let's see, a little bit squinty. Now I've grouped this together, so every time I click on it, it's selected together. But if I double click, I can now select the individual pieces of this eye, move them around to make this guy be a little less inviting. Okay. Once I select back to layer 1, now I can select these. These are stuck together again. Another cool way to copy something is simply to hold the Alt key on your keyboard, and you can drag it down and it will make a duplicate of what you already had. And then I can simply adjust the angle for this guy's face. Now, probably you wouldn't want him looking all crazy like this. So we may want to rotate this around. So we might either rotate it all the way, or we can reflect it again. We can do a rotate of 180 degrees. It's going to pop it around for us, and then we can place it where it needs to go. Now, so far so good. Let's get ourselves maybe an angry guy might have an L for a nose, but we're going to tweak this L, make it a little different. So again, I click on the selection tool. I can make this bigger. If I simply grab the side of it and don't hold the shift key, it's going to morph this L into all kinds of shapes, which for you guys might be great, depending on what you want it to look like. You might want it super narrow. You might want it much wider. You might also want it to have a bend in it or something, so it's not a true L, so that it's kind of a crooked L. So in my case, again, I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to say Expand. Hit OK. This gives me all the different options. When I use the Direct Selection tool, I can now move these points. Now the problem is there's not a point in the middle here where I would like to put a little bit of a bend or a kink into this L. So one little trick, whenever you're working with paths in Illustrator, so if I select this corner point, I can move this around, I can do whatever with it, but I can also select, if I hold the Alt key on my keyboard, it will actually let me pull out, or not, yeah. If I want to change this, what's the easiest way to change this? There we go. If I want to change the shape of this L and add in a little kink here, I'm going to take, instead of the Direct Selection tool, I'm going to take the Pen tool, and I am going to hold the Alt key on the keyboard, and I can now drag the edge of his nose out a little, and then I can drag this side. If I let go and then hit Alt again, I can grab the other side, bring the other side in just a pinch. So now you get a custom looking L. Which hopefully makes him look a little bit more on the angry side. You could also take these handles and kind of use that to bend this more or less, to jiggle things around. And there you go. So it kind of looks like a 2, but not really. We'll take the selection tool again here. We can rotate this just a little bit, and now we get our confused, angry nose. Once you're finished chugging away here, so make sure you keep counting. So I have one different shape for this O, another one for the center. So these two are the same. So I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 points right now. I can add in, maybe I add in just a simple period. And obviously I need to make it much bigger. But I can add this in, and this could be like a pupil. So the guy is like super stern. That gives him a little bit more of a nasty look. So again, I can use the Alt and just pull out a second one to match it up. That gives him a little bit more ferociousness. And let's see, angry kind of mouth is going to look a little bit crazy. So maybe let's try some W's. So if I take the letter W, and maybe I'll make a few of them, and then I can take this, bring it down here, make this a little bit bigger. A technique that you can do to adjust the spacing in between these letters is you can adjust what's called the kerning. So you select all the letters, you hold the Alt key, and then you can move them to the left or to the right, either to make more space or to make less space between those characters. So now you get this super stern looking mouth going on, a little bit creepy actually. If we wanted, we can do crazy things to this. Similar as before, we can go to Object, we can expand this object, gives us the information around the outside, take our direct selection tool, and now each one of these points, if I wanted, I could move the W by itself, or if I select just on the anchor points here, maybe I want to pull this side one up so we get some sort of a crazy tassel on the end here, giving him a bit of a demented look. That may not have worked, so if I don't like what I did, I just go Control Z and back up. But either way, I now have another character. So again, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we need one more. What would an angry guy look like? Maybe he would need something. Maybe he needs some hair of some kind. So we're just going to have a backslash here, and maybe we'll make a bunch of them to add in as some sort of crazy hair at the top here. And again, it's super easy to grab a whole bunch of them. You can move them around simply by selecting a big batch. I feel like this is too tall. Angry guy would be like, there we go. That looks a little more like teeth. We almost need a mouth. This could be some sketchy looking teeth. So maybe you take, you could either take just the line tool, or you could take a text and you could just simply make a capital I. Depending on the font you're using, a capital I should be a straight line, and you can turn it on its side and then stretch it way out. Keep it skinny, but make it nice and long. Maybe we'll duplicate that and give ourselves 2 of them. So there's our kind of crazy angry guy. Okay, so you're going to finish the other 3, and then when you're all done, you're going to go to File, Save As. You're going to save this as a PDF, so make sure it's Adobe PDF. You're going to go Typography, Faces. It's going to ask you some questions. You just leave it the same. Save for PDF. And then what's going to happen is you will have that PDF that you can then open up. So find the folder that you saved it in. Open up the file. Oh, maybe it didn't save where I wanted it to. Oh no, it's there. So go to your F drive, go to your ComTech folder. There it is. Typography faces. Within this document, it's gonna pop up and it will have your 4 pages. So there's my angry one, but then I've got 3 that are just blank for now. When you print this, you're gonna go File, Print, and because we want to save some paper, we don't want to print on big giant full-size pages. You're actually gonna select this button that says Multiple, and when you do that, you want to have a custom 2x2, so it gives us 4 pictures here, and we would end up with a portrait. It's all good to go. You'd hit print, and from there you're pretty much ready to go. You'd have to write your name on it when you're all finished, just to make sure that I know whose faces these are. You're going to want to put your name on it, but other than that, that's the only thing you'd have to do once it prints out, and then you are good to go. So hopefully that makes sense about the typography faces assignment, how to do it, and how to print it. Enjoy, have some fun, have a great day.